ratio to help us find missing parts of a right triangle. Now, hopefully you've read through your notes and you've seen that the sine of an angle, it's always the sine of an angle. It's not sine times an angle, it's the sine of an angle. We often call angles things like theta or whatever. Sine of an angle, that's a theta sign, just in case you're wondering. It's a Greek letter. We won't get into that. It's not really important. But the sine of theta is equal to the opposite, which we often shorten to OPP, over the hypotenuse, which is HYP. We're going to talk about this a little bit more later, but we've got SO, CA, TOA. The sine is the one that we're doing right now. Sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse. Another thing I'm going to show you is we'll draw a little triangle that looks like this. Sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse. So you've got SO. And I'll show you how to use that in a minute. So we've got a ladder. It's 8.5 meters long. It makes an angle of 72 degrees with the ground. So here's our ladder. It's 72 degrees with the ground. We want to know how far up the side of the building it will reach. And so that's what we're looking for right here is H. So this is our angle. The side opposite our angle is H. And this is opposite the right angle. So this is the hypotenuse. So this is our hypotenuse. This is opposite the angle we're talking about. So when we're talking about opposite, we always mean opposite the angle that we're dealing with. So here we're talking about the angle 72 degrees, angle A. So this is opposite. So sine theta is opposite over hypotenuse. I already have that. My angle is 72 degrees. Please write in that it's degrees because, like I said, we can also measure in radians. And if you don't have the little degrees, it says radians. So that would actually be wrong. So sine of 72 degrees is equal to H, because that's my opposite, over the hypotenuse, which is 8.5. Now, what I was saying, oh, sorry, yeah, H. Sorry, I got confused a little bit because this said hypotenuse and the opposite was called H. So here I'm looking for the opposite. So I can't really do it with this, but if I were to cover up the O, you would see the S and the H are side by side. And that means we're going to multiply them. So in the same thing, if we look here, if we think of this as a proportion, it's the sine of 72 over 1. Well, how do we solve for H? We multiply the things that are across from each other and divide by the third. So it would be 8.5 times sine of 72 divided by 1, which doesn't change it. So we have 8.5. You can put the times sign is in, that's fine. I'll generally just write it 8.5 sine 72, and that just means you're multiplying it. So if you want to put the little times sign is, that's okay. But this is what we got. So if, like I said before, we're looking for the opposite. So if I covered up this O, we'd see it's the sine times the hypotenuse. So it's the sine of the angle times the hypotenuse, which is 8.5. So what is H? Well, let's put that into our calculators. Again, very important that you know how to use your calculator. This one, I can do that it's 8.5 times the sine of 72. And that's going to give me my answer. If you have a calculator where you have to put in the degrees and then sine, you're going to have to do 72 sine and then multiply that by 85. So, or you could do, or sorry, 8.5, or you could do 8.5 times 72 sine equals. And if you're not sure, make sure you're checking. So this is 8.08398, etc. My length here is just to the nearest tenth, so let's do this one to the nearest tenth because it doesn't tell us anyway otherwise. So 8.0, I look at the next numbers at 8. That's telling me to round up, so it's going to be 8.1. So H is equal to 8.1, and my units are meters. And so the ladder reaches 8.1 meters up the building. And that makes sense. It should be almost as long as this, but remember the hypotenuse is always the longest one. So if you get an answer bigger than 8.5 for one of the legs, you know you'd have the wrong answer. But in this case, it's 8.1 meters up the building, and we're